Imagine for a moment. It's 1942. You're walking through the streets of Warsaw, but this isn't the city of life and culture it once was. You're inside the Warsaw Ghetto, a hell on earth created by the Nazis. Every day, thousands are starving, dying from disease, or being shipped off to death camps. Now, picture a young woman, just 29 years old, walking straight into this nightmare. She isn't a soldier, she isn't a politician. She's a nurse. Her name is Irena Sendler, and she's carrying an empty burlap sack. This is the incredible, almost unbelievable, true story of a woman who stared evil in the face and smuggled 2,500 children to safety. A hero who saved more lives than the famous Oskar Schindler, yet whose story was almost lost to history forever. How did one woman, armed with nothing but courage and a network of brave friends, pull off one of the most daring rescue operations of World War II? And why was she nearly forgotten? Irena Sendler was a Polish social worker when the Nazis invaded Poland and created the Warsaw Ghetto. Sealing nearly 500,000 Jews inside, Irena knew she couldn't stand by. She was not Jewish, but she had been raised by her father, a physician who died treating typhus patients that other doctors refused to see, to believe in helping people regardless of their religion or nationality. He taught her, if you see a man drowning, you must jump in to save him. So Irena jumped. She got a permit from the Epidemic Control Department to enter the ghetto, officially to check for signs of typhus. But her real mission was far more dangerous. She began by smuggling out orphans, convincing parents who were facing an impossible choice: give up your child to a stranger with a slim chance of survival, or keep them with you and face almost certain death together. Think about that decision. The sheer agony of handing over your child, not knowing if you'd ever see them again. Irena would tell them, I can offer no guarantees, but she offered a sliver of hope in a world of absolute darkness. Her methods were ingenious and terrifyingly risky. She'd hide small children in potato sacks, toolboxes, and even coffins, pretending they were victims of typhus. She'd sedate babies to keep them quiet and place them in the bottom of an ambulance, hidden under other patients. One of her most famous tricks involved a burlap sack and a well-trained dog. She'd place a child in the sack, and she trained her dog to bark loudly whenever she passed the Nazi guards, drowning out any potential cries from inside the bag. Every trip was a dance with death, but saving them was only the first step. Irena had to give them a future. She created a network, mainly of other women, who helped her create false identity documents and place the children with Polish families, in convents, or in orphanages. But she never wanted their true identities to be lost forever. For every child she saved, she wrote down their real name and their new, adopted name on a tiny piece of tissue paper. She couldn't risk keeping this list on her. So, she placed these precious slips of paper into glass jars and, under the cover of darkness, buried them beneath an apple tree in a friend's backyard. She was preserving not just their lives, but their history, their families, their very selves, hoping that one day, after the war, she could dig up those jars and reunite the children with any surviving relatives. For 3 years, Irena and her network, part of a Polish underground resistance group called Jagoda, worked tirelessly. The scale of her operation was staggering. Imagine, smuggling out child after child, day after day, for over 1,000 days. Each one a life saved, but also a new secret to keep, a new risk to manage. The mental and emotional toll must have been immense. She was living a double life, a quiet social worker on the surface, a master rescuer in the shadows. But her luck couldn't last forever. In October 1943, the Gestapo came for her. An informant had betrayed her. They stormed her apartment in the middle of the night. In that split second before they burst in, a friend who was visiting managed to grab the latest list of names and hide it in her underwear. It was a close call that saved hundreds of identities from falling into Nazi hands. Irena was taken to the infamous Powiat prison, a place from which few returned. The Gestapo knew she was a key figure in the resistance. They wanted names. They wanted to know where the children were. They interrogated her. They tortured her brutally, breaking both of her legs and both of her arms. But through all the pain, through all the fear, Irena Sendler did not say a word. She never gave up a single name, not one child, not one contact. She protected them all, even as her own body was being shattered. After weeks of torture, with no information gained, the Gestapo sentenced her to death by firing squad. Her name was added to the list of prisoners to be executed. But the Polish underground hadn't forgotten her. They managed to bribe a German guard on the day of her execution. As she was being let out, the guard let her escape into the street. He then added her name to the official lists of those who had been executed. On paper, Irena Sendler was dead. She spent the rest of the war in hiding, using a false identity, but she was alive. When the war finally ended, the first thing she did was go back to that apple tree. She dug up the jars. That list, containing the names of 2,500 children, was her most sacred possession. She handed it over to the surviving Jewish community leaders, hoping to reunite families. Sadly, almost all of the parents had perished in the Treblinka death camp or died in the ghetto. But because of Irena, 2,500 children had survived. You would think a hero of this magnitude would be celebrated, her name known across the world. But that's not what happened. After the war, Poland fell under a communist regime, which was hostile to the wartime Polish resistance that wasn't aligned with them. Irena's story, her heroism, was suppressed. She lived a quiet life as a social worker, an administrator, her incredible deeds known only to a small circle of people and the survivors she saved. They called her Jolanta, her wartime code name, and for many of them, she was the only mother they ever knew. Some still call her mom to this day. For decades, the world didn't know her name. Her story was buried, just like those jars under the apple tree. Then, something amazing happened. In 1999, for high school students, in a small town in Kansas, for a history project, stumbled upon a brief mention of a woman who saved 2,500 children. They were stunned. How could they have never heard of her? They dug deeper, and their research eventually led them to a play they wrote called Life in a Jar. The play became a sensation, and it brought Irena Sendler's story out of the shadows and onto the world stage. Finally, she began to receive the recognition she deserved. She was awarded Poland's highest honor and was recognized by Yad Vashem as one of the righteous among the nations. In 2007, she was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Many believed she was the clear choice. In a shocking decision, the prize went to Al Gore for his work on climate change. While that work is important, many people around the world were outraged that this quiet, humble hero, who risked everything for others, was overlooked. Irena herself was never bitter. She simply said, "Every child saved with my help is the justification of my existence on this earth, and not a title to glory." Irena Sendler passed away in 2008 at the age of 98. She lived a long life, a life defined by one simple, powerful act of defiance against pure evil. She saw people drowning, and she jumped in. This tiny woman stood up against the entire Third Reich and saved a generation. Her story isn't just history. It's a powerful lesson in courage, compassion, and the incredible difference one person can make. If her story touched you, please hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next story about a real hero. We are a growing channel and looking for volunteers who love history to help us research, script, or create. If you're interested, check the description for our email. Let's make sure heroes like Irena are never forgotten. In the comments below, let us know your thoughts, or simply leave a heart or write, "Thank you, Irena," to honor her memory. Thank you for watching.